He doesn't call. He doesn't text. And yet, there you are waiting, quietly, faithfully. Even when nothing is said, your heart keeps hoping. You tell yourself maybe he's busy, maybe he's going through something. Maybe, just maybe, he'll come around. But then one day, you stop. You stop checking your phone. You stop rehearsing what to say if he ever shows up again. You stop wondering what went wrong or what you could have done differently. And that day, quiet and ordinary to the rest of the world, is the day everything begins to change. Because it's in that silence, in that pause, that he begins to feel something he hasn't felt in a long time. Your absence. There is something tragically beautiful in the way women love, especially women over 35. Women who have lived, who have given, who have stayed. Women who have poured themselves into relationships like water into a cracked vase, knowing it leaks, but still believing it's worth holding together. Women who, despite the disappointments, still hope that maybe this time it would be different. She cooks, she calls, she comforts, she forgives, again and again, and somewhere in the middle of all that giving, she becomes invisible. Not because she's less, but because she's always there, always available, always present. And that's the mistake, isn't it? That we only notice something when it's gone. The woman who stays too long becomes part of the background, like the soft hum of a refrigerator or the ticking of a clock, constant, dependable, forgotten. He doesn't mean to take her for granted, but he does. Because she's always been there. And in the world he lives in, presence is mistaken for permanence. But she is not permanent, she is human. And like every soul that has given too much, one day, she reaches the end of herself. Not in bitterness, not in rage, just stillness. She burns out silently, like a candle left to die alone in a room no one enters. This is not a story of revenge. It's not about making him regret. It's about a deeper truth. That sometimes, the most powerful thing a woman can do is walk away without a word. To not explain, to not scream, to not ask why. Because something changes the moment she stops. Her energy shifts. The dynamic shatters. The man who once believed she would always be there suddenly realizes he's not. There's no more "how was your day" text, no more spontaneous check-ins, no more warmth in the room that used to smell like her perfume. And that silence, it hits him like thunder. He checks his phone. Nothing. He scrolls through old messages. No new ones. He glances at her stories, none posted. And for the first time he wonders, where did she go? But she didn't go anywhere. She just returned to herself. See, there is a moment in a woman's life, especially a woman who has loved deeply, fallen hard, and healed slowly, where she realizes love isn't about giving endlessly. It's about balance, reciprocity, being seen. And when that balance is lost long enough, even the most giving woman learns to preserve her peace over proving her worth. He will miss her not because she was perfect, but because she was real, present, loyal. The kind of woman who stayed when she had every reason to leave. And when she finally does leave, it's not because she stopped loving. It's because she started listening to her silence, to her own unmet needs, to the quiet voice inside whispering, "You deserve more than this." And the tragedy is, most men don't see it until she's gone. They only begin to cherish the warmth when they're left in the cold. They only begin to reflect when there's nothing left to reflect against. It's not until her absence becomes undeniable that he starts asking the questions he should have asked long ago. Did I do enough? Was she happy? Why did I stop trying? But by then, she's different. Her silence has transformed her. She's not the same woman who used to wait by the phone. She's not chasing, hoping, overthinking. She's rebuilding. Not to be better for him, but for herself. The truth is, when a woman stops giving what was never appreciated, she doesn't become bitter. She becomes better. Not in comparison to anyone else, but in alignment with her truth. Her energy no longer moves in desperation. It flows with intention. And that, more than anything, is what he'll miss. He'll miss the way she listened without interrupting. The way she believed in him, even when he didn't believe in himself. The way her presence felt like home quiet. Strong. Unshakable. He'll miss the messages she no longer sends, the warmth that no longer greets him, the comfort that once surrounded him like a familiar scent. But by then, she won't be waiting anymore. Because she will have discovered something far more precious than being loved by someone else. She will have remembered what it feels like to be whole, on her own. And in that remembrance, she will rise not louder, not colder, but clearer, more rooted, more alive. When you stop doing everything to be loved, you finally create the space for someone to love you right, or for you to love yourself right. That's when he'll miss you. Not for what you did, but for who you are. But by then, you will have already moved on. Some women are unforgettable, no, because they are the most beautiful, the loudest in the room, or the ones who chase love with fireworks and noise. They are unforgettable because they carry something deeper, something that lingers, something that haunts a man long after she's gone. It's not the curve of her body or the style of her clothes. It's not the color of her lips or the sound of her laughter, though all of those things may be lovely. What makes her unforgettable is her energy, her stillness, her self-possession. It's the way she moves through the world, not needing to be seen, but impossible to ignore. She doesn't need to raise her voice to be heard. She doesn't need to demand attention to be felt. Her presence speaks louder than anything she says. And that is what stays with him. Carl Jung once said, "A woman who steps out of the shadow of the need to be loved becomes an archetype of freedom and intuition." This kind of woman is no longer seeking approval. She has peeled herself away from the need to be wanted, and in doing so, she becomes something entirely different, something rare. She becomes magnetic. There is a quiet power in the woman who no longer performs for love. She does not ask, "What do I need to become for him to want me?" Instead, she asks, "What do I need to release to fully be myself?" And that shift changes everything. You've seen her before. She may not be the one everyone notices at first. She doesn't always wear the flashiest clothes or speak the loudest in a crowd. But somehow, people gravitate toward her. Men especially remember her not for how much she gave, but for how much of herself she withheld for only the worthy. This woman doesn't chase attention, she commands presence. Her silence is deliberate. Her space is sacred. And the man who has felt her energy knows, whether he admits it or not, that he encountered something he may never find again. That's what happens when a woman grows past the age where she seeks validation through romance. When she's lived through heartbreaks that nearly broke her, sacrificed too much in relationships that gave too little, and learned that survival isn't love, she begins to refine, to elevate, to deepen. She becomes a woman not easily replaced. Because she's not offering a role to fill or a checklist to complete, she's offering depth. And depth is intimidating. For a man, she becomes a mirror he wasn't prepared to look into. She reflects back to him not who he is, but who he would need to become in order to stand beside her. And that's the shift. She no longer wants to be chosen. She chooses, not out of pride or bitterness, but out of clarity. She spent too many years twisting herself to fit molds never meant for her. Now, she wears her essence like a tailored coat, precise, intentional, hers. She doesn't beg to be understood. She doesn't shrink to make others feel comfortable. She doesn't edit herself to be more palatable. Instead, she stands fully in who she is, not aggressively, not forcefully, just unapologetically. And that is what makes her unforgettable. She doesn't text 100 times. She doesn't ask for promises. She doesn't cling. She's not loud, but her silence has weight. Her gaze holds questions he's never asked himself. Her energy lingers in rooms long after she's left. She knows what she's worth. And she doesn't barter her soul for temporary affection. That kind of integrity, that kind of restraint, stays with a man, especially the one who wasn't ready for her, especially the one who didn't see her until it was too late. She might have loved him unseedly, even recklessly, but not blindly. Not anymore. Because love, to her now, isn't about losing herself. It's about finding someone who adds to what she's already built. That is why she's unforgettable. Not because she gave everything, but because she gave only what was real and took everything fake and left it behind. The men who've known her don't always speak of her, but she stays in their bones, in their memories, in the quiet moments when no one else is around, in the comparisons they can't help but make, in the regrets they can't fully name, not because she punished them, not because she tried to make them feel guilty, but because she lived in truth, and truth echoes. She is not defined by how many people desire her. She is defined by how little she needs to be desired to know her worth. Her beauty is not conventional. It's not the kind that fades. It's not measured in years or curves or trends. It's the kind of beauty that grows in silence, that sharpens through solitude, that glows with a kind of clarity only pain can teach. She's not the woman they get over. She's the woman they remember. Not because she was perfect, but because she was present deeply, intentionally, unapologetically. She was real. And when a woman becomes real, when she becomes rooted in herself, she stops being a memory. She becomes a lesson. You don't need to change to be loved. You need to become yourself to be remembered the right way. That's the truth most women forget in the chase for approval. But the moment you stop adjusting, stop pleasing, stop editing your truth just to be accepted, you become irreplaceable. Not loud, not demanding, just undeniable. And that's the kind of woman no man forgets. Love doesn't arrive when you're waiting. It arrives when you're no longer waiting at all. There's a point in a woman's life, often after years of trying, hoping, giving, where she stops. Not out of bitterness, but out of clarity. She no longer sits by the phone. She no longer imagines that the next message or the next man will finally be the one who stays. She no longer believes that love, by itself, is enough. Because she's learned, sometimes painfully, that love isn't a guarantee, that wanting someone isn't the same as keeping them. That no matter how deeply you feel, some people simply won't choose to stay. And so, she stops waiting, she stops performing, she stops expecting love to rescue her. Instead, she turns inward. This is the beginning of a different kind of love story. One not about finding the right person, but about becoming the woman who doesn't need to be found, because she's no longer lost. Carl Jung spoke of shadow work, the courageous act of looking at the parts of ourselves we've buried, denied, or hidden. And that's exactly what this woman begins to do. She stops asking why he left, and starts asking why she begged him to stay. She stops blaming the past and starts examining the pattern. She stops seeking closure and begins offering it to herself. She looks at the old wounds, the childhood fears, the silent compromises, the nights she cried herself to sleep, wondering what was wrong with her. She doesn't run from them anymore. She faces them. And that's where the transformation begins. Because when you stop searching for someone to fill the silence, you begin to hear something else, something deeper, the voice of your own soul, the whisper you've silenced for years under the noise of longing. It's subtle at first, then unmistakable. You realize that the silence you feared isn't emptiness. It's clarity, it's space, it's healing. And you begin to see why love hasn't arrived, not because you're unworthy, not because you're broken, but because you weren't ready. You were still building a home inside of yourself, still mending the foundation, still learning the difference between being alone and being whole. The truth is, love doesn't come to the woman who waits. It comes to the woman who walks, who rises, who lets go. The woman who learns that loving someone isn't about saving them. It's about honoring yourself. She begins to live differently. She speaks more gently to herself. She no longer asks, "What's wrong with me?" Instead, she asks, "What truth have I been avoiding?" And the answer is always the same. She gave too much to people who never gave enough. She stayed too long in rooms where she wasn't seen. She watered deserts and called it hope. But not anymore. Because now she knows love is not about proving your worth. It's about protecting your peace. It's not about sacrificing your identity to be chosen. It's about choosing yourself so fully that only those who match your energy can step into your life. This kind of self-love isn't loud. It doesn't post inspirational quotes. It doesn't announce itself. It simply moves differently. It walks away from drama. It declines the breadcrumb affection. It says no to half efforts. and inconsistent attention. It waits for nothing. And in that refusal to wait it is met. Love shows up not when she begs for it, but when she no longer needs it to feel whole. Because she's done the work. She's faced the shadow. She's met herself in the dark and didn't look away. Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." That is what she's doing, making the unconscious conscious, no longer calling heartbreak destiny, no longer labeling chaos as passion, no longer mistaking survival for love. And maybe right now, you're in that silence too. That space between what was and what will be. That uncomfortable sacred pause, where everything feels still, empty, quiet. But it's not nothing, it's becoming. If you are in that place, say it out loud, or say it softly, or type it in the comments, if it feels right. I'm choosing myself. You're not broken. You're being rebuilt. You're not abandoned. You're being redirected. You're not lost. You're being found by you. There is power in that silence. There is truth in that space. There is transformation in that stillness. But only if you stay long enough to feel it. Some people will try to pull you back, into their chaos, into their confusion, into their half-lived love. But once you've tasted the peace of self-possession, you can never go back to hunger disguised as romance. You'll notice it more clearly now. The way your body tightens when something isn't right. The way your soul resists what once tempted you. The way your intuition speaks in full sentences when before it only whispered. And maybe you'll miss someone. Maybe you'll ache for what could have been. But you won't beg. Not this time. Because you've seen what it costs. And now, you choose differently. This is the woman love remembers. The one who doesn't chase. The one who doesn't compete. The one who doesn't shrink. Not because she's better, but because she's done with pretending she isn't. Love will find her, but only when it no longer defines her. Because the love that lasts is not born from need. It is born from alignment. You don't attract what you wish for. You attract what you are. So become the kind of woman who no longer waits to be chosen. Become the kind of woman who chooses herself and watch what begins to change. You are not wrong. You are not weak. You are not behind. You are awakening, and that is your strength. There comes a point in a woman's life, often after 35, but sometimes earlier, when something shifts. Not because of age, not because of bitterness, but because of clarity. She no longer asks to be gotten. She no longer dreams of being pursued in desperation, desired at all costs, or saved from herself. She no longer plays the role of the prize that waits to be claimed. Instead, she becomes something else entirely. She becomes the kind of woman no one simply gets. She becomes the kind of woman one must be worthy to stand beside. This is not arrogance. It's evolution. She's lived long enough to know what it costs to shrink herself in order to keep someone. She's made herself smaller so someone else could feel big. She's compromised her truth for the sake of being chosen. And in doing so, she discovered something vital. A love that asks you to abandon yourself is not love at all. It's dependency, wearing a mask. So now, she reframes everything. She doesn't wait anymore. She doesn't beg. She doesn't settle. Just because she's lonely. Because she's learned loneliness is far better than being misunderstood in someone else's arms. She is not waiting to be rescued. She is building a life she doesn't need saving from. That is the power of a woman who has walked through fire and came out holding her own hand. That is the woman who stops needing and starts choosing. Because after enough heartbreaks, enough healing, enough time spent sitting with herself in silence, she begins to understand she is not half of anything. Carl Jung called this the process of individuation, the becoming of the whole self. Not the self molded by others' expectations, but the authentic self, born of integration. It is not about isolation. It is about self-recognition. It is about no longer outsourcing your worth. It is about saying, I am already complete, and anything I allow into my life must meet me there. So now, when love comes knocking, she doesn't answer with desperation. She opens the door slowly. She observes. She listens, not just to their words, but to how her body feels in their presence. Is there ease or pressure? Is there expansion or shrinking? And if it doesn't feel right, she lets it go. No apologies, no second guessing, no explaining. Because here is the truth. The woman who has found peace is no longer interested in adrenaline. She doesn't chase chemistry. She watches for consistency. She's not seduced by charm. She looks for character. She doesn't fall for potential. She honors patterns. She is not moved by grand declarations. She watches how someone holds space when no one is watching. She doesn't want someone to complete her. She wants someone to match her, to complement, not consume. This is the woman who becomes rare not because she's hard to love, but because she refuses to be loved poorly. She is not looking for love to define her. She is looking for love that reflects what she's already found within. She no longer walks into rooms hoping to be seen. She walks into rooms knowing who she isn't, that energy changes everything. She doesn't need to be the most beautiful. She doesn't need to be the most wanted. She only needs to be herself. And that is more than enough. Because a woman who is deeply herself is magnetic, not in a loud way, in a rooted way. People feel her before they speak to her. Her presence is settled, not performative. She is not here to impress. She is here to express. There is a softness to her. But do not mistake it for weakness. It is a softness built from surviving storms that would have broken others. A tenderness she chose to preserve, despite all the reasons to harden. She does not raise her voice to be heard. Her silence speaks volumes. She does not explain her standards. They are self-evident. She does not beg for attention. Her presence demands it without trying. And when someone asks for access to her life, she does not hand them the key. She asks the question, have you done the work? Have you met yourself in your own silence? Have you bled for your growth? Have you faced your shadow? Because if not, I will overwhelm you. Not because I ask for too much, but because I exist too deeply. This is the woman who no longer chases. Not because she's given up on love, but because she understands her love is not a transaction, it's a gift. And only those who honor it will receive it. She doesn't punish. She doesn't manipulate. She doesn't play games. She simply aligns sand. Whatever isn't aligned, she releases. Not with resentment, with grace. That's what makes her unforgettable. Not that she's hard to reach, but that once you've experienced her truth, nothing else compares. Because now, she doesn't search for love. She chooses it when it's right. And if it's not, she chooses peace. Every time. That is the difference. She is not afraid to walk away. She is not afraid to start over. She is not afraid to be alone, because she has built a home within herself, and nothing and no one is worth burning that down for. So no, you cannot have her. You must rise to meet her. You must earn the right to stand beside her, not through performance, but through presence. Not through promises, but through practice. Not through trying to fix her, but by having fixed yourself. She doesn't want you to be perfect. She wants you to be real, to be whole, to be clear, to be grounded, because that is who she has become. She is not the woman who needs to be loved to feel valuable. She is the woman who loves herself so deeply that only those with depth can stay. The woman a man regrets the most is never the one who begged him to stay. It's the one who left quietly, with clarity in her eyes and peace in her heart. No threats, no drama, no second chances asked. Just silence and a presence that slowly disappears like mist at dawn. She didn't leave to teach him a lesson. She left because she had learned hers. She understood that love is not meant to be earned through sacrifice. That staying in a place where she's not seen is the slowest form of erasure. That pleading for attention is the quickest way to lose herself. So she walked away. Not out of bitterness, but out of self-respect. And that is what he will remember. Not the noise, but the absence. The space she used to fill so effortlessly with her laughter, her softness, her quiet strength. He'll remember how she used to listen without interrupting, how she made space for his storms, how she stayed, even when he gave her reasons not to. He will remember her not because she made herself unforgettable, but because she never tried to. She simply was. Entire. Grounded. Awake. And when she left, she took nothing, but somehow, everything felt missing. That kind of woman doesn't rage when she's hurt. She doesn't beg when she's ignored. She doesn't cling when she's pushed away. She observes. She absorbs. And then, when the silence inside her grows louder than the noise outside, she makes a decision, and once made, she does not go back. Carl Jung once said, "The tree that grows to heaven must send its roots down to hell." And that is what she has done. She has suffered. She has descended. She has faced the shadows, both hers and his. She has looked into the abyss of disappointment, betrayal, silence, and doubt, and did not flinch. She has broken open, not to stay broken, but to grow. Her transformation was not loud. It was sacred. It was a woman choosing to no longer betray herself in the name of love. And when she left, she didn't announce it. She didn't try to make him notice. She just stopped answering questions that should never have been asked. She stopped explaining pain that should have been seen. She stopped waiting, and that's when he began to feel it, not immediately. At first, he may have mistaken her silence for weakness, her absence for a phase. But over time, it sank in. The calls stopped coming. The softness stopped reaching. The warmth that once waited on the other side of every mistake was gone. And he begins to wonder, where did she go? But the truth is, she didn't go anywhere. She returned to herself, fully, fiercely, quietly. He'll remember her not because she needed him, but because she didn't. Not anymore. And there is nothing more haunting than the presence of a woman who once would have done anything to stay, but chose instead to walk away without asking for anything in return. That is the woman who lingers. Not in the inbox, not in the photos, not in the messages those fade, but in the mind, in the heart, in the silence that follows when every other voice feels shallow in comparison. Because she was not just love, she was truth, and truth never needs to scream. So remember this, you don't need to be chosen to be valuable. You only need to choose yourself. And when you do, the world will learn sometimes too late what it lost when it failed to see you clearly. You were never asking for too much. You were just offering it to the wrong person. And now, you're no longer offering, you're simply being, and in that being, you become unforgettable.